Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Tevis. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back again to the All Access Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Thiessen. Hey, welcome to all of you guys again. I am really excited to have this person on this podcast because it's not very often that you get to talk to a celebrity. No, it's not Tom Cruise or it's not Giselle or any of those Hollywood stars, but this person is a real celebrity in our manufacturing circles. And usually when she talks on stage or she is on podcasts and all that, people seem to be listening and watching very closely of the predictions and the messages that she delivers. So I'm real happy to have this person on this podcast. Today, we're talking about the state of the tooling industry. What's going on? How do you react? What could be the forecast for all of those things that are happening? And this person is really an expert when it comes to the manufacturing environment and also an advisor when it comes to the operations and the strategies for companies. She has been a 30-plus year veteran in the manufacturing area with helping with small to medium-sized manufacturing companies, and she's also the co-founder of Harbour Results. I don't think this person needs any kind of introduction any more than that because everybody knows already that we'll be talking to Laurie Harbour. Laurie, I don't think I want to talk any more about this because you are truly a celebrity when it comes to the manufacturing circles. Because, listen, every single time when I've heard you speak, people are attentive, they're listening, they really are engaged, and they want to know from you always, how is the industry coming? So welcome, Laurie. Welcome onto the podcast.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. It's good that we're not on camera because I think I'm blushing. So I don't know about this. I don't know about this celebrity thing, but I'm definitely very passionate and focused on improving North American manufacturing. And so I'm glad that comes out through my speeches and things of that nature. So thank you for having me. And thank you to Tevis for being such a great partner to us.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I know you now for quite some time. I've gone to many of the OESA meetings. We've had multiple meetings together, and it is always a delight to kind of hear where are we going in manufacturing. You're such a voice, not just here in Michigan, but all around the U.S., wherever there's tooling involved, you have the ins and outs. So tell me, how is our current state of manufacturing? Where are we heading? What's currently going on?
Well, it's been a very interesting 3 years, right? I mean, we had some crazy times in 2020 with COVID, and then we go into this 2021 calendar year, and demand is super high and uncontrollable sort of demand for durable goods, which has been great. It's been up about 40%. But it, of course, created supply chain issues, and we had labor challenges. And then we go into 22 thinking that this is going to be another great year. And then we're sort of hit with things like global unrest and energy crisis and rising inflation and interest rates and things of that nature, and ultimately a pending recession or in recession, if that's what many people think. But manufacturing's been actually relatively strong. There's certainly some interesting areas where we have to watch and look at. But when I talk about our friends in automotive tooling, it has been an interesting time. They arguably have had a pretty slow couple of years with sort of their own recession, which tends to precede a larger recession. But our forecast for the future is really very bullish and very positive for tooling moving forward. I think next year will be similar to this year, a good steady pace, but it's going to dramatically pick up as we go through the balance of the decade. So I'm really pretty positive about manufacturing. There's some things to worry about, which I'm sure we could talk about, but overall, I think manufacturing's got some very good bright spots.
It's good to hear that you're so positive because obviously all of the sometimes the news that we're getting from various channels that, a recession, or we're heading into a recession. And normally the natural response for a recession, you want to kind of hunker down and don't really invest into a lot of new technologies and all of this. Is this a good thing right now to do, to kind of hunker down and not invest in new technology? Or do you think, looking into the future, since we are so positive, that maybe we should invest? What should a tooling person do at this time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we have to hunker down and watch our cash, but that doesn't mean don't invest. In fact, I think investment for the right reasons is absolutely critical in this, period where we're a little slow. Technology and finding avenues to help the workforce be more effective and efficient at what they do is going to be absolutely critical. We're going to look towards a time in 2025 and 26 where we're making probably as many tools as we did back in 2017, which was the huge tooling year that we saw in automotive. And in order to do that, with the challenges we have, especially with labor, we need to utilize our equipment better. We have to utilize technology like what you guys do with programming and design software, and really standardizing what we're doing to drive effective, efficient utilization of our equipment and our people. And so I absolutely think investment is critical. At the same time, we got to be good stewards of our cash, because it'll be a tough time. And we've all had to raise labor rates, and cost of doing business has gone up. So we have to be diligent, but we have to be smart at investing so that we don't fall behind.
Right. So you mentioned already early on, we had multiple challenges in the manufacturing field, supply chain issues, all of those kind of things. Now, obviously, there's always these supply chain issues right now. They're popping up. One time it was resin, then it became steel, then it is fasteners, and all these kind of things start to be popping up. And it almost feels like that they're popping up more and more frequent now, that a new short in demand item is coming up. Now, all of that kind of stuff has an effect on our tooling makers, on our mold makers, because obviously it's additional cost that they have to bear in, because, if they can't find steel is going to go up in price, which means all that entity has to move towards the consumer, or eventually the prices will have to go up on these molds. Do you think there will become almost a plateau where it becomes almost too expensive?
I think that certainly the cost of doing business and getting steel and getting resin for tryout and multiple other things. I mean, we're finding very small things to very large things. It sort of seems like, you plug one hole in the supply chain and another one, pops up. So I do think that it continues to be a challenge from a cost perspective. Unfortunately, I don't see the price of tooling going up. I think that, the OEMs are going to hold fast to their target pricing. And we have reached a bit of level off on steel for, tool steel and things of that nature. So I think that we'll see things settle in a little bit. It really is the truth of economics and supply and demand. We pressed the system of manufacturing that COVID created by this high demand, and that popped holes in the supply chain. So we believe that by the end of 2023, we'll start to see some real easing in certain areas. And frankly, in tooling, we've already seen some of that ease a little bit. But it's definitely something that we have to continue to watch for manufacturers as they move forward.
Right. Well, hopefully the shortages that we're seeing, or even the increases in fuel costs and all that kind of stuff, hopefully that's going to be leveled out hopefully soon, because these are all costs that the tooling vendors have to absorb somehow, either into the cost of the mold or any of those things. Now, there's another item that you mentioned earlier too, and that's our labor market. I mean, the labor market is all over. Every shop that I've gone to, they're looking for people. They're trying to hire skilled workers. Sometimes they can't find the skilled workers, so now they're utilizing unskilled workers. What's your message to those companies out there that are just not trying to find the skilled laborers that are out there?
Yeah, it's a huge, huge issue everywhere we go, right? Not even just in North America, but globally. There's no silver bullet solution to this labor problem. We had an environment of, we've got a whole new workforce coming in terms of Gen Zs and the younger millennials that are coming out of school and looking for positions in skilled and unskilled roles. And in some cases, people are saying, people don't want to work. And I tend to buck that trend a little bit. I'm not convinced people don't want to work. I think that this generation wants to work in places that they can make a difference. They want to work in a place that's clean, that's full of technology. And, my biggest message to companies as I go around today is that the owners tend to complain that human resources isn't helping them solve their problem. And then I walk out on the shop floor and I say, would you let your kid work here? Because it's dirty and it's unsafe and it's dingy. So the best thing we can do as manufacturers is do the basics, clean up our plant, install the lights. I was at a joint customer of ours in Iowa a couple weeks ago. And, he just installed brand new lighting and he cleaned up the floor and he put some 5S processes in place. And it's a really cool place to work now. And he's got all of this great technology in there. He's utilizing Tebis and he's got a team that's saying, wow, now I really feel like I have a place I want to go to work, a great new break room, all that kind of stuff. So just using that as an example, when I go to plants that look phenomenal and are showing their technology, the younger generation walks in and says, okay, now I feel like this is a place I want to work. But then the next step has to be, how do we figure out what motivates them? Do they want to contribute, and where do they want to contribute? And, most of this generation, and I applaud them for it, they want to change the world. And I think we should figure out how we funnel that changing of the world into changing our business and making a difference in the products that we're making for our customers. So it's not a problem anybody's going to solve for us, and it's probably here to stay. So we have to figure out new and creative ways to attract, retain, and train people so that they can make a difference and feel like they love where they work.
I mean, the industry has come a long way. If I think of 20 years ago, walking into dye shops or even mold shops, and there were dark floors and oil all over the place, chips flying all over the place, it was not a great environment to be in. And you're right. Having just a clean floor, white machines, bright lighting, it says something to people that are walking in and even the young kids, because I see a lot of companies that we are working with inviting high schoolers in, getting these young generations back in touch again with manufacturing and trying to show them what can be done. I mean, even with my kids, both of my kids are working in the automotive industry, mainly because, they have been influenced by me a little bit being in the automotive industry. But there truly is a desire to make a difference. And as you're right, these kids have a desire to do this, and they want to work this, but they don't want to work in a grungy place where they just feel like that it's not for them.
Right. And the other piece of this, too, is that we have a whole fraction of the workforce that we don't see a lot in tool shops. I mean, you and I walk through tool shops, we don't see a lot of females. We don't see a lot of diverse races and cultures. And it's not that they don't want to work in those places, but the other key to this is that they want to work somewhere where they see someone that looks like them. So one of our clients, again, a joint client of ours up in the Brantford, Ontario area, what he has done is brought in 2 or 3 women at one time, or 2 or 3 people of a different race at one time, so that they have sort of a group of folks that they can sort of have as a build a camaraderie with. And then it grows from there, right? So then if other women come, they go, oh, there's 3 women on the shop floor. It's not just one, right? So sometimes if we can recruit, we only change that culture if we work it intentionally changing that culture. So those are some of the ways everybody says to me, well, I want more women. And I say, well, then don't hire just one. Bring three in at the same time, put them into an apprentice program, and then at least they feel like they're more comfortable starting out.
Diversity is so important. Having a different viewpoint sometimes in any company, not just have the males just giving their viewpoints in. And I see this from my daughter that works in the plastics industry, that she thinks outside the box sometimes. Which when you're dealing with the same group of people, it's always the same thoughts. We've always done it this way. We're never going to try anything different. And all of a sudden, there comes a young person. It could be male or female, it doesn't matter, but bringing that secondary look or an outside look and being bold enough from companies to say, you know what, we'll try this. Why not?
Right. Well, you know this because you and I have children of the same age, right? I mean, I tell my children all the time, I mean, they're smarter than me, hands down. I mean, I couldn't help either one of them through their math in high school or college. So, their ability, my son's a toolmaker. So he looks and sees at things from an engineering perspective and mindset that I can't even process. So I think it's just that us older generation folks sometimes feel like experience is the only answer. And the truth of the matter is we have to connect that experience that you and I have and the many people on the shop floors with this new thinking in this new education system and efficiency mindset together and let them share things, collectively so that we can learn from the experience, but we can also learn how to be more effective and efficient and stop being wasteful. Because that's what this new generation really wants to do is they believe that we shouldn't waste time doing things that don't make sense, right? So if we can connect those two, we'll make a difference.
Right. And technology is so important. I mean, all these Gen Zers, come on, they grew up with iPhones in their hands at a very young age. And even my youngest son, when he was younger, he could outdo me in games easily. And they're just in tune with this type of technology and utilizing technology to further manufacturing. I mean, that today is key. And from our side, on the Tebas side, we cannot encourage more companies to invest in training and getting their people up to speed with the latest technology. Because I think when you go through your shops and you see that companies are not utilizing technology, do you see that they're a little bit further behind on the 8 ball and are questioning, are they going to make it through this next round of issues?
Absolutely. I mean, if we spend it, it's kind of like, my analogy of it is we buy Microsoft 365 and we use 10% of Excel or PowerPoint or whatever the case is. And we do the same thing when we buy these multi-million-dollar CNC machines. We buy expensive programming and design software to go on them, but we don't leverage the resources like a Tebas or a Makino or wherever we're getting this equipment and software from to really train the masses and then encourage them to take it to the next level, experiment with it and figure out what we can do. It's really as simple as not handcuffing us with, well, we've tried that before and it didn't work. Why do we do it that way? And is there another way? Let's try it. Let's experiment it. They were all brought up. I mean, I didn't even have a computer when I went to college, right? We have to buy those for our elementary school children these days. So being able to leverage the technology and the ways in which they were taught to do that. And again, then combine it with the person who has to build a mold and try it out and make sure it makes a good part. And teach collectively those ways, right? That's the ultimate goal as we go into the remainder of this decade and beyond. We're going to lose a lot of good tribal knowledge if we're not sharing that tribal knowledge, but we can't let that tribal knowledge influence or hinder the growth of the younger generation.
Right. I mean, you guys at Harbour Results, you guys go into companies, you look at their processes, you look at the way how they're operating, you give advice on how to make things better, how to be more efficient, recognize those bottlenecks. Do you realize, and I remember this from many years ago, you mentioned to companies that, listen, you need to do X, Y, or Z. And if you don't do these X, Y, or Z, you might be in trouble going down into the next five to 10 years, because you need to invest in these technologies. When you go in these companies now, do you see that these companies that have listened to your advice are a lot in a better position? Or what have you seen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I won't take all the credit for that. I mean, the reality is that once you find changing the culture and driving performance of your business comes 100% down to leadership. And so, we meet some owners of some of these mold makers and die shops who absolutely are humble and understand that they need support. It takes a village, right? And they put good people around them. They put good outside, advisors around them, whether that's an accountant, a lawyer, or a consultant like us. And then they ask the questions, why do we do it this way? And they challenge the status quo. And, the thing in tooling is that you've got a whole fraction of people who inherited a business that maybe don't have some of that leadership skill, and they fall to what we call sort of the victim mentality. Well, we do it this way. It's the way we've always done it. We can't really do anything different. And they struggle. They struggle to meet, the performance level that we would love to see them do it, which is why when you see me on stage, I'm so passionately pushing people to sort of wake up to opportunities. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help, right? So whether that's your software provider in training, or it's your accountant or your consultant, it allows us to really build the solid business strategy and approach to getting better each and every day. And so but we are seeing it. I mean, you've got some very strong top performers that are tool makers that continue to make levels of profit that their peers are making a quarter of, because they've not done the things to improve. And it's going to be important in these next several years, because as we go through this recession, there's certainly risks to our forecast. And you have to be able to be flexible enough to respond to the day-to-day so that you're able to stay, moving forward.
So what would be your message to those people that have not yet listened to or have not yet followed through with the things that you had mentioned? Is it too late for them to get back on the horse again and trying to utilize technology and do the training and invest in newer machines and invest in cleaning up? Is it too late for this? And should they close up just shop and say, okay, sayonara? Or is there still ample availability and ability to do this?
Absolutely. It's not too late for most tool shops. I mean, we have a couple companies in today's environment that are struggling on a day-to-day basis for lots of different reasons. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's all their fault, right? I mean, we have a very tough structure of payment to tool makers, from OEMs to tier ones to tool shops. And the tier one community in automotive today is struggling financially because volumes are down so low. And so they're, using their payments on tools for other things and not necessarily always paying tool makers. So I wouldn't put it all on the tool maker. But if we know that that's how things are operating, then what do we do from there, right? So how do we drive flexible business? So it's not too late. There's a lot of things that we need to start to do as leaders. And again, part of our challenge is our owners and our leaders are working team members of our company. We need to, as leaders, step up and step out of our business and work on the business and start to ask the tough questions. What does our business look like today? Kind of assess your own business, whether you do that with someone like us or whether you do it internally and have a colleague or a friend come in. You have to kind of look at your business on an ongoing basis. What are we doing now? What do we need to do better? And then we have to start analyzing data. all of these companies have, accounting systems or ERP systems. What does the data tell us? How well do we build tools to what we quoted, and how much is our machines running, and what's our scrap, and how many do loops do we have to fix something? So analyzing the data, talking to the people on the floor is so critical because they live it every day, right? Be open-minded. Don't dictate. Seek to understand those kinds of things.
So some of our listeners that are in this position, I mean, they can reach out to Harbour Results if they want to change their ways of doing it and want to get some advice from you. They can contact you guys at Harbour Results, and you would help them out.
Absolutely. And they should also contact the people that are their other service providers, right? So again, software providers like Tevis, let's go get some more training. Let's figure out how to drive our efficiency. People who are machine manufacturers that they own, like, are we optimizing that piece of equipment well enough? There's other types of technology that start to get us into predictive maintenance. So, we buy an expensive CNC, we want to keep it running 80 to 90% of the time. So how do we do some of, it's sort of like improvement by 1,000 different cuts, right? We have to look at everything, but we also have to focus and make sure that we drive the right business on our core competencies into our company.
We are in a very interesting age right now. Not age from our age, and I don't even want to get there because I'm way too old already, but the industry age, we're in a switching point right now. Going from ICEs, from internal combustion engines, we're seeing more and more of electrification happening. And that changeover, that brings its own challenges. It brings its own interesting changes because of new technologies are being employed, new ways of doing things are doing done. What do you see in this next 3, 5, 10 years? Do you see this electrification being more and more popular, that it becomes an actual, it's not just a trend, that this is the way how the automotive industry is moving, and it's either get on the horse or get out? Or what do you see with this?
Absolutely. There's no doubt we are at a turning point. One would argue we're even 20 years behind sort of the turn of the century change that might have or should have happened. People joke about it, but if you go back to the 1900s, right? I mean, was a real turning point from horse and buggy to cars. And now, fast forward over 100 years, we're now looking at a massive technology that doesn't just affect automotive. We're building electric tractors, we're building electric boats, we're building electric RVs and trucks. And so it's all, and the new generation wants this, right? It's all about the environment, and it's all about clean energy. And we have an energy crisis. And that's what puts a little bit of pressure on, being able to go to BEVs. So, will it happen as quickly as some of the analysts believe it will? Maybe not, but it's certainly coming, and we can't stop it from coming. Even with the change of their administration, we're not going to stop it because it's happening globally. But I also believe that those people who are I'm doubtful about 2035, more will happen in the next 12 years than happened in the last 10, because that's just how quickly technology is advancing. So it certainly is coming. Now, the beauty of this for a tool maker is it means a lot more models and a lot more tools need to be built, right? So even if I only make 10,000 of this new Cadillac BEV, or I think it's actually less than that, 3,000 or so, I still needed to make tools to make all of the parts that go into that vehicle. So it's a great opportunity for the tool industry. And frankly, the technology we're seeing in tooling, things that make them stronger from an overall automation, equipment perspective, the software technology, whether it's ERP or design and machine programming, or going into process and quality, and even people technology, is helping tool makers quite a bit. The one thing that is not coming through to tool makers, which is more of a threat, is this whole 3D printing thing. Everybody said, hey, 3D printing is going to affect tool makers. I don't see that in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with you there as well. With the tool makers, though, yes, I see that more models are coming up, and the nice thing about these BEVs or these electric vehicles they're coming out, these OEMs can't just go to the parts bin and grab some parts off of it because it has to be completely revamped, which is great for the tool maker because now there's new items that they have to manufacture. But then when we look at the interior trim levels, everything is going towards digital. So which means that there's less moldings for switches and even mirrors are going towards cameras and all that stuff. Does that have an impact too on our tool makers because there's less tools that have to be made?
Absolutely. So there's no doubt that the face of tool making and the parts that are produced will change over the next 10 to 20 years, right? And some are more extreme than others. You go into a Tesla, all you have is a screen and maybe one button on your door panel, right? But if I go into a Hummer, for example, we're still seeing the traditional OEMs put less content, but still there's some there. So tool makers, especially on interior trim, are going to have to reinvent themselves a little bit as we move faster into an autonomous vehicle where, you and I are going to sit in the backseat of a car and drive to Grand Rapids from Detroit. That's very different. And the interiors will change, which could lead to just different tooling, right? The seats, the screens, the things that we might want in a different vein. But for the most part, the demand for tooling is still going to be relatively significant. And one other major point about battery electric is that today, in today's environment, it requires less tooling than a traditional ICE product, mainly because we've limited the number of trim levels. So a Hummer has one bumper fascia, but a Ford Explorer has 5, for example, because the amount of money and amount of sales are very, very different. As we get to a tipping point of more battery electric vehicle, and we're making money on those now, we'll start to add more content. We'll have 2 or 3 bumpers to choose from or 2 or 3 lighting systems to choose from. So it's why for the next 10 to 20 years, I still feel pretty confident that there's going to be a lot of tool volume out there. Our biggest challenge in the next couple years is going to be capacity to support the growth because big trucks are coming. I mean, and we know when big trucks come, whether it's Ford, GM, or Chrysler, and all 3 of them are coming at the same time, that throws hundreds of thousands of tools into the market. So we want to keep that capacity. We're in a window of time where people are not running to China because of logistics and supply chain challenges. We got to capitalize on that, get flexible, and be able to land some of that new work.
Now that's difficult though too. I mean, yes, and I've heard this from a lot of news channels and administration individuals as well, that we're trying to pull more and more work back into the U.S. again. So if that's more molds, more dies, more tooling, more whatever, and bring that back from China. And you're right, not everybody right now is heading to China because of the supply chain issues. But at the same time, we're having also this skilled labor issue that how we can handle all of this, that, yeah, we want to pull all this work in. We don't have the skilled labor to facilitate this. Will this be a boomerang effect again where it's all of a sudden saying that the message is out, well, yeah, we're trying to bring it back, but we can't manufacture it here because we don't have enough individuals. So therefore, I have to go again to overseas, if that is China or South Africa or Mexico, whatever that is. Do you think that can happen?
I absolutely am 100% agreeing with you on that one. It's going to be our biggest challenge in the next 4 to 5 years because let's face it, a tool maker's capacity is not always machine dependent. It's people dependent, right? I can automate machining and run lights out, and I can do all of these things of standardization, but I still need an expert tool maker to put the tool together, spot it, try it out, and make a good part. And so we have got the challenge we face with the recession in the next 18 months of, sort of maybe some soft market is that we have to keep investing, as you said before, whether that's in technology or people. And for those companies who may not have run a great business before COVID, and COVID maybe bought them some extra time because of federal funding, either in Canada or in the US, and now that funding's gone, maybe we didn't use it wisely, that's going to be harder for you, right? Because you may actually lay people off if you're soft. You may not keep some of your skilled workforce, or maybe they've become too expensive. The problem is that the data tells us hands down that unless we see some new, big, massive change in our economy or in an automotive OEM, the tools are coming, both ICE and BEV. And right now, you got to remember the D3 particularly are wildly profitable. Even though we're selling fewer vehicles, they're wildly profitable. So they have no intent of changing this product development plan unless something drastic happens with the economy, which we don't believe. Recession will be minor and we will move past it by 2024. So the tools I'm making next year are for 2025. So if we have to be able to hold on, this has always been a vulnerable industry, right? Because, and frankly, it's, I had an OEM tell me earlier this week, where's all the die shops? I need some die shop capacity. And I said, well, you did this to yourself, right? You did this to yourself. You walked to China 20 years ago and then they had to shrink. So, this is a great opportunity for the best tool makers to really capitalize on opportunities in the upcoming future. It's also a great opportunity for those who might be, mediocre but are doing okay to really drive flexibility and process improvement. And if they can do that, they'll open up capacity and then they can better utilize their people. And then we've got to have HR and everybody on the operating floor looking for new people. We got to talk about how cool tool making is.
If I get the message right from our last 30 odd minutes from what we talked now, is companies need to invest in their technology and their people. They need to invest in them and getting them trained up for the next 10, 15 years. They need to look at individuals, diverse individuals, if that is hiring more females and getting in contact with universities, trying to go to these university fairs and trying to recruit these young experts already, clean up your shop and really invest in your company, but yet be mindful in where you're investing in, because that could be a big change or big effect on how you're going to operate your business over the next 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely. Summarized it very well.
Any thoughts from your side, what individuals, companies can do even more in trying to make sure that they're on board for the next 5 to, I was at the OESA meeting and the conference that we've had, and you laid it very nicely out over the next 3 to 5 years. The amount of models that are coming out is just phenomenal. And all these models have to be tooled up, and our tooling industry is going to be incredibly busy. What is the message to them in between now and when this thing all kicks off?
Leaders need to lead. They need to step out of the day-to-day grind and they need to lead. And they need to focus on attracting labor, hire a very strong human resource professional, not just an administrator, have them out constantly looking for people, but also have them working with their partners on training. How do we train them? Embrace the younger workforce. Ask them how they would do things different. We have to sort of change our mindset. One of the tool makers that we both work with in Ontario, when actually before COVID, he pulled all of his younger generation people together and he said, hey, we're thinking about this work from home thing and how do we attract new labor and what do we do differently? And he brought them all in and bought them pizza and said, talk to me about what your peers want and how they do what they do. This company doesn't have a problem getting labor because they've embraced the younger generation in a way that allows them to come in and make a difference. Now, their experienced people are still there, but they're creating a culture of change. So the next 3 years, we have to put ourselves in a position where we hunker down, manage our cash, manage our finance. Don't just take bad work just to fill work, work that could drain the bucket a little bit, but build a technology roadmap. What is that technology roadmap? And you saw it when we presented on October 25th. Everybody thinks technology roadmap is just about automation, but it's not. It's automation equipment, it's software, it's process, it's quality, and it's human capital. And if we can build that roadmap for the future and work to plug away at it, you'll be better positioned when that work comes in.
Right. Well, Laurie, it was a real pleasure talking to you again. And I guarantee you these listeners that we have on listening to this podcast are engaging. Obviously, if they have questions, they can reach out to Harbour Results directly. They can reach out to you or Kara or any of the officers that are over at Harbour Results. What we need to do is we need to make sure that our industry is sustainable, that they're looking into the future, they have the right technology in order to compete against the foreign factors that are there, so that we can keep as much tooling in-house, meaning in our US of A, so that we can build up all of our tools here. And on top of it, that we can create a brand new workforce with younger kids that are really excited about picking up a piece of molded plastic and trying to figure out how is this manufactured, because I think that's what we're lacking a little bit, the excitement, the coolness factor of our industry. Any final thoughts?
No, absolutely agree with all of that. I mean, there are absolutely young folks out there who can really make a big impact in tooling, and they're excited. And let's not forget, these are good paying jobs, right? So a lot of people are in tooling are making more money than those with 4-year college degrees. So I think the future is really bright. Yes, it's going to be a tough 12 to 18 months of recession, but I actually think manufacturing won't be nearly as affected as sort of retail and everything else. So we have to just, stay focused on getting better and improving every day, and we'll be well positioned for the growth that's going to come in the back half of the decade.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Great forecasts. Great numbers. Thank you for your advice, for your assistance, for your leadership. And we really enjoyed having you on the All Access podcast. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Guys, you heard it here first. Really listen to the words what Laurie said. Invest in your people. Look at what you have. In your people are the biggest investment that you have in your company. You can't let that down. Get them trained up. Get them utilize new technology. Look at your machinery and how you can improve this, because the tooling is coming. It is going to be in front of your doorsteps, and you have to then make a decision of what you're going to do. We need to keep our jobs here in the U.S. We need to manufacture here. We need to be ready for all of those things, and those are some great advice what we can do. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast and the message that we're bringing to you. If you have some ideas, some thoughts of what we can bring up in the next several podcasts, send it to us here at marketing@tebususa.com. Get it to us. Give us your input if you like the podcast. And hopefully we see you here in the next upcoming podcast here again. From me here in our little studio here in Troy, Michigan, I wish you guys a wonderful time. Hopefully you guys are all busy out there. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebus's capabilities, visit our website at Tebus. That's TEBIS.com.